Hello, my name is Lorrie Cranor. Welcome to my kitchen. Today I would like to talk with you about cookies. No, not these yummy chocolate chip cookies that just came out of my oven. Today we're going to talk about those cookies that can do useful things on websites, but can also invade your privacy. You know the ones I'm talking about. You can't see those cookies, but you've undoubtedly seen those annoying cookie consent banners popping up all over the place. Do you ever read them? Most people don't. They are supposed to offer users privacy choices and comply with privacy laws, but many of them fail to do either of these things. How can we make cookie consent interfaces more usable? That's a question that I've been studying with my colleagues and students in CyLab at Carnegie Mellon University. So today, I would like to talk about some of our research in this area and some of our recommendations for better cookie consent design. So let's start by looking at what we mean by the word usable. What makes a cookie consent interface, or really any privacy choice or consent interface, usable? We've identified 7 important properties. First, the interface needs to address user needs. It needs to offer a set of choices that include options that users actually want. If we offer a choice of peanut butter cookies or almond cookies to people who have allergic reactions to nuts, we aren't meeting user needs. Similarly, if our users don't want website cookies, then forcing them to accept all cookies, whether they like it or not, is not meeting their needs. Second, the interface should require minimal effort to use. It should be easy for users to find the choice options and select them. For cookie consent interfaces, the interface itself tends to be easy to find as they pop up and block your web browser. But sometimes, if you want to make a choice other than accepting all cookies, you have to click through multiple tabs to reject each type of cookie one at a time. Third, users need to be aware of what choices exist and where to find them. Unfortunately, there are a lot of websites that offer opt-out privacy choices, but most users don't even realize they are there. Even users who look for these choices often have trouble finding them. Sometimes it is helpful to link to the choices from multiple places so that users will be aware of them and find them wherever they look for them, whether in the privacy policy or on the form where data is collected. Fourth, interfaces need to convey choices and their implications so users understand them easily. This means avoiding jargon and convoluted sentences and making sure you explain things so users will understand. Fifth, users should feel satisfied when they use the interface and trust that their choices will be honored. Consent interfaces that just make users grumpy or angry are not so good. 6, we need consent interfaces that allow users to change their decisions, whether because they made a mistake and clicked the wrong button, or maybe they just changed their mind. And finally, we need consent interfaces that don't nudge people towards the less privacy protective options, sometimes referred to as dark patterns. Let's look at some of the most common dark patterns we see in cookie banners, all of which make me very grumpy. Here we have unequal paths, that is, making it easier to make the less privacy protective choice. If you want to accept all cookies, you click the big button. If you want to do something else, you have to click a cookie settings link and then hope that when you get to the next page, you don't have to press too many buttons to reject cookies. This one is very common on US websites. Another common dark pattern we see is a banner where the default setting is the least privacy protective option. Here, the default setting is to accept all 3 types of cookies: required, functional, and advertising. In this common dark pattern, we have confusing buttons that aren't clear about what they do. In the top right corner, there is an X that will close the banner. But which cookie settings do you get if you click it? In the bottom left is a Save Settings button. But the only choice we can see on the screen is the choice for targeting cookies. If we want to know what the choices are for the 4 other types of cookies, we have to click through the 4 other tabs one at a time. Then there's the OK button, which might do the same thing as Save Settings, or maybe it really means Accept All. I don't even know. Another thing we see a lot is a website that has a cookie banner that doesn't provide any choices at all. You just click OK, or accept, or got it, or I'm fine with this. But you don't have any choice in the banner. Actually, I'm not fine with this. I'm not a lawyer, but from what I know about privacy law, there is no good reason for this sort of banner to exist at all. Finally, let's look at an example of confirm shaming, which is wording that guilts or shames users to influence their decision. This banner talks about the quality organic cookies that this company sells, which sound great and I would love to eat some. But that has nothing to do with whether I consent to this website's use of cookies. Unfortunately, there are a lot of examples of unusable cookie banners out there. There's an organization in Austria called NOYB, or N-O-Y-B, which stands for None of Your Business, that has been searching for cookie banners that are not only unusable, but also violate GDPR. They've been reaching out to hundreds of companies to ask them to bring their banners into compliance. They've actually had some success in getting websites to improve their banners. For example, you can see on this clothing retailer's website, they used to have a big accept all cookies button and a link to manage settings. But now they offer both a reject all and accept all cookies button, in addition to a cookie settings button. NOYB has focused their efforts on websites that use a consent management platform, or CMP, from a company called OneTrust, which seems to be the most popular CMP these days. There are several other CMPs that also have a fairly large presence. They all provide tools to allow websites to provide consent banners and control the placement of cookies according to the choices users make. Most of them also include tools that will find all the cookies on a website and put them into categories. Most CMPs offer a lot of flexibility, but maybe too much. You can use these tools to create consent banners that exhibit dark patterns and fail to comply with the very regulations that are prompting organizations to create consent banners in the first place. Here are two consent banners from OneTrust. The organization on the left created this confusing interface with buttons I don't understand and lots of tabs to click through. The organization on the right has toggles for all of their cookies up front and uses an accordion feature where you can click on the plus sign to get more information about each type of cookie. Here is a banner from a different CMP called CookieBot. They offer a nice checkbox format where you can see all the cookie options in the banner and check the boxes for the cookies you want to accept. If you click Show Details, you can actually get information about each cookie individually. This may be more than most people actually want, but it is an interesting option. Last summer, my students looked at cookie banners on 191 websites that used one of 5 popular CMPs. They checked them all for 5 dark patterns I mentioned, and also looked for other usability issues. Of the 191 websites they looked at, only 23 did not exhibit any dark patterns. 150 of them suffered from unequal paths, which was by far the most common dark pattern. Here are several examples. The other 4 dark patterns also showed up a number of times as well. After reviewing all of these consent banners, my students realized that there were a number of design parameters that were showing up over and over again, probably due to the settings available from the CMPs. We identified 9 design parameters and designed an online user study to explore the impact of 7 of them. We presented this study at the CHI 2022 conference in May. We began our research by designing an e-commerce website called Cups and Such, a purveyor of fine cups from stemware to adult sippy cups. We developed 12 versions of a consent banner for Cups and Such to gain insights into the impact of the various design parameters. This is the version that we hypothesized would be the best one that we tested, so we called it Best Practices. It uses bulleted text rather than a big dense paragraph. All of the options are available with nice checkboxes, and it is just as easy to accept as reject cookies. This banner pops up in the center of the screen and requires users to make a decision. This is the version that we hypothesized would be the worst one we tested, so we called it Worst Practices. This one sits at the bottom of the screen, and users can just ignore it. It has just one big paragraph of text and just an OK button. If you want to select other options, you have to click on a cookie preferences link that is embedded in that big paragraph of text. This is the version that doesn't actually have a banner. It just has a cookie preferences button in the lower right, which is also something we saw on websites. You click on the button, then you get a list of your cookie choices. We set up the Cups and Such website so that when someone arrived at the website, they would see one of the 12 cookie consent banners. We ran the study on the prolific crowd-working platform and had over 1,100 participants complete our study. We invited participants to help us test the new Cups and Such website. We paid them each $5, and they took about 16 minutes to complete the study. We asked each participant to take a look at the Cups and Such website, select a product, and put it in their shopping cart. After they did that, we asked them some questions. We started by asking them what product they selected and how easy or difficult they found using the website. Then we asked them whether they recalled making a privacy-related decision, and if so, what it was about and what decision they made. We wanted to see whether they remembered encountering the cookie consent banner and what choice they had made in this fairly realistic scenario where they were not actually focused on the cookie banner. We asked them a number of other questions about their consent decision and what they expected to happen as a result. Then we sent them back to the Cups and Such website and asked participants to revisit most of the questions, this time while looking at the website. This allowed us to see whether people had a better understanding of the consent banner when they focused their attention on it. We also asked them what they would do if they changed their mind and wanted to make a different cookie choice. Finally, we asked them some demographic questions. Let me give you a few highlights from our results. First, let's look at what consent decisions people actually made. Each row represents one of our 12 conditions. The people who accepted only strictly necessary cookies are shown in red. The people who accepted all cookies are shown in green. And the people who didn't make any selection are shown in purple. The people who made fine-grained cookie decisions are shown in blue. Not very many of those. The first thing we see is that the interfaces where you have to click through a button or link to get to the cookie settings, hardly anyone rejected any cookies. There is very little red or blue. Without the embedded options, most participants didn't bother checking the cookie preference options and said they didn't think about it carefully and just chose the easiest option. On the other hand, in the interfaces where all the cookie options were embedded in the consent banner, about a third of the participants rejected some of the cookies, and these participants were much more likely to say they actually thought about the decision. Among the interfaces that were basically the same as the best practices condition, except for differences in some of the wordings or whether the text was formatted in bullets or one big paragraph, the differences in the decision participants made were minimal. We can also see that in the corner button condition, not a single participant made any kind of cookie decision. The bar is all purple. In fact, in all the non-blocking interfaces, there were some participants who did not interact with the cookie banner at all, and participants in these conditions had much less awareness of what their cookie options were. We also looked at whether participants were able to figure out how to change their decision and whether having a persistent cookie preferences button helps. In the best practices condition, 82% of participants saw the button and said they would use it to reverse their decision. On the other hand, those who were in the condition without a cookie preferences button often didn't know how to reverse their decision. Only 45% noticed the link to the cookie policy and said they would click that. Thus, we see that the persistent cookie preferences button is a much more visible way to let participants know how to change their decision. We also asked participants about the 4 types of cookies shown in this banner to see if they understood what they are. We asked them multiple choice questions and asked them to identify the correct definitions of each type of cookie. While most participants correctly identified strictly necessary and targeting cookies, only about 48% correctly identified the definition of performance cookie, and 16% correctly identified the definition of functional cookies. I want to point out that these are the standard terms used for cookies in the OneTrust CMP, and some of the other CMPs as well. These terms were actually put forward in 2012 by the UK International Chamber of Commerce, but it is not clear whether these terms were ever tested with users. For example, functional cookies are cookies that are used to help personalize the website, but many users in our study confuse them with strictly necessary cookies, which are needed for the website to work properly. CookieBot actually uses different words and calls functional cookies preferences cookies. My students have done some preliminary studies to try to come up with alternative cookie categories and see if they make sense to users. We found that the terms preferences cookies and personalized experience cookies were much clearer to users than functional cookies. Hopefully, we'll have more results soon and a proposal for standard cookie language that makes sense to more users than the current categories. Recently, my students have also built a new version of the Cups and Such website, and this time they used the OneTrust CMP to implement 14 cookie banner variations. We're trying some new variations, including using the OneTrust accordion feature. We also implemented a 3-button version with purple buttons for Accept Only Necessary and Accept All, as well as a button to edit cookie preferences. I would like to wrap things up with some recommendations. First of all, if you aren't going to offer any choices, don't bother users with a consent banner. Privacy laws do not require you to offer a notice and have users swat it away. And some regulators have explicitly recommended against cookie banners that do not offer choices. If you have determined that you don't need to give users choices, then don't give them pointless cookie banners. If you are going to give users choices, don't bury them behind a cookie preferences or choose cookies link or anything like that. With the interface on the top left, users have to click the choose cookies link and then figure out what their choices are. And our research shows that most users are hesitant to do that. With the interface on the right, users can see all their choices up front, and it is just as easy to make any of them. Or, if you want to simplify things a bit, the one on the bottom left offers users the ability to reject cookies just as easily as they accept cookies, and also includes a button for those who want to manage their preferences further. Another issue is whether to have a fully blocking cookie banner. A less conspicuous banner or button at the bottom of the screen might provide a better user experience, except that we know that most users will never interact with it and might not even notice it. If the default cookie setting is to only set strictly necessary cookies, that might be okay. But if there is a less privacy protective default, then by being unobtrusive, you are actually nudging users to accept this low privacy default. In some jurisdictions, this is actually illegal, but even where it is allowed, this is not a privacy-friendly approach. So now we have a dilemma, because we know that users don't want to have to stop at every website and make a cookie decision. But at the same time, we want to give users choices and make it easy for them to protect their privacy. For the time being, we're stuck with cookie banner solutions, but ultimately, I think we need to move to automated decisions to reduce user burden. We've tried this with P3P and later Do Not Track, and unfortunately, we were not able to gain the industry support for these standards to catch on. There are some new proposals that would allow users to set up their browsers with their cookie preferences and have their browser signal to the website automatically as to which types of cookies a user is willing to accept. I think the only way we are going to make consent decisions scale without burdening users is to adopt automated solutions, and this seems unlikely to happen without a legal mandate. In the meantime, hopefully our research offers some useful recommendations about how we can make cookie consent interfaces a bit more usable and useful to users.